Good afternoon. Welcome to New Mom Mondays. I am pretty excited about today's guest because we have Christy Flynn today.
Hello, everyone.
Dr. Patrick's wife, as he says, his beautiful bride, right?
Yes, he's awesome.
Of course he is. And Christy's here, and we're going to talk about home birth because that's what you did. Now,
all four of them.
Yeah, all four girls. And so some of you probably know your story because of Dr. Patrick. I feel really weird calling him Dr. Patrick to you because it's like it's just Patrick, right? I mean, you call him Patrick.
Yeah. Sometimes I call him Doc.
We all just call him Doc
calls him Doc.
Yeah,
so.
It's just Doc. So you if you follow The Wellness Way or Doc's Facebook page, you probably have seen his story. And which really is a lot of your story too. I mean, it's your story together because of what you had to go through to have your four beautiful girls.
Absolutely.
And then basically we're kind of going to go into why you chose to do that at home. But can you give us just like a brief 2-minute?
Okay.
Yeah.
So
like what your story is.
I struggled with a lot of health issues growing up. And got to the point where I was diagnosed with endometriosis and had all sort of colitis, migraines. I mean, it felt like in college with all the stress, surprise. It felt like all my organs were just slowly shutting down. So by the time I met him, I was still really sick. Yeah. And but he just said, "You're going to be fine. Don't worry." And I was like, I've never had anyone say that to me before. I was like,
tell you, you're going to be fine. Yeah, and that is something he still says now. It'll be fine.
At that time, I mean, think about the number one stressor. Stress for women.
Yes.
What I didn't realize at the time, that's what he was trying to do. Right. Was get rid of one of these stressors. Don't worry about that right now. Let's just work on getting your health back. Let's start making baby steps on your journey, and that's an important thing to note. We're all on our own health journey. Right. Everybody's at different stages.
Yeah, and that's where sometimes, I should mention, too, that Bree's not here. Bree's missing today. Yeah. She's just a little under the weather. Her family is building their immune systems, as we like to call it.
Building the immune system?
Yeah, and actually my son is, too, so she decided to, stay home today and get some rest. But what was I going to say to that? I don't remember now.
Building immune system?
Yeah. Okay. But basically, what you're saying, is like what we like to say is the crunchy scale on the show. At least is like everyone's on their different
level of the
spot
crunchy scale where you're at. I don't know, that crunchy scale. The name of that is sometimes when people are like, where do you get that? Crunchy granola, twigs and berries. I don't know.
And it's come back around.
It has.
The crunchy thing.
It has.
Because I know we've talked about it before where it's like, it's a new term for me because it's new for me to be crunchy. Right. But for you, it's like you've been called that before. Oh. And now.
Well, and let's go back now. Yeah. So, we work on my health. I'm getting to the point where Patrick's just like, well, do we want to try? And, I definitely wanted to wait a little bit to be married for a little bit, but I also knew I had to get my body healthy. And so we waited a little, and then we got pregnant. And I was just super excited and like, yes. And I just trusted him so much and trusted the process, trusted God. I had been praying, Lord, I want this. And like I said, even in the book, I say, once he said, don't worry, I trusted and I never looked back. I'm like, okay, we're doing this.
Just follow the process and go with it.
In the process, I'm newly pregnant and I told my parents and because of all the issues my mom dealt with reproductive stuff, with different things. Remember, sick mommies produce sick babies. Right. She didn't want to get her hopes up. Her own fears were so strong that I sent out Christmas cards and I said, Aunt, you have Patrick, Christy, and baby. And my mom, bless her heart, she was like, I have people telling me, oh, congratulations. Why did you tell everybody? Oh, no. Like she was just her own fear of
hesitant about it,
knowing that we didn't know if I was going to be able to have kids.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how strong that was, but that fear was so rooted. Wow. So, I mean, it was a big thing, you know, like I was just like, okay, you know, and then I was very, very sick and I'm like, oh, I'm definitely pregnant, you know.
I was going to ask how the pregnancies were, like if they were easy pregnancies because you were healthier when you got pregnant or how that.
I'll be the first to say that I'm one of those people that I hated being pregnant. I hated the process, but I loved birth.
One of my closest friends is the same way.
I loved birth. I loved birth. Everyone's like, what? Are you kidding me? Knock me out. Give me drugs. I'm like, no, I love it.
You loved it. And you did home births, which is really what we're going to get to the point of is, like, how do you choose where you're comfortable, home versus hospital, and then what are some of those differences?
Well, and that's what I always talk to when I'm talking to women, young ladies who are in college or different things like that. I always tell them, when you're deciding where you want to have your baby, it has to be where you feel most safe. It has to be where you feel most relaxed and comfortable. For some people, they want to be in a hospital setting. Awesome. That's where you have to have your baby. But for me, with everything that I dealt with in the past, there was no way I was going anywhere near a hospital. I did not feel comfortable.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it because you didn't want them pushing you to do things that you weren't comfortable with? Or was it because you just wanted to be at home? Like, was it a little both?
It was a little both.
Yeah.
I didn't, because they didn't do anything to help me in the past. I mean, it was just drugs. I mean, all this stuff where I was like,
you had a history with.
Yes, I didn't want to go there. I didn't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense.
We being, you know, from the chiropractic family, so we get married. A lot of our friends are chiropractors and their wives. And guess what? They had home births. I'm like, well, I can do that. If you can do that, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I did.
And you did it. And you did it
and I did it 4 times. And
well, what were you saying though before we started the show? Like you knew you wanted to do a home birth before you even bought your first house.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, the first house that we had, okay, so we knew we wanted to do home birth, but the first house we had, we didn't plan for a home birth. We were just thinking, oh yeah, we'll buy one of those pools, you know, and actually we did have one of those pools. We just never ended up filling it because I went into labor at like 5-ish. I didn't even know I was in labor. I was like, well, it's just constant. My midwife is calling me. She's like, I'm coming out there, but I just want to check in with you. And I'm like, well, it's just solid, you know? It just never lets up. She's like, honey, you're in labor. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's how it's supposed to feel.
And then I had her at like 1 a.m. So it was relatively, you know, just kind of progressed along. I tried.
But you didn't have a birthing pool.
I didn't. So I had a bathtub. Okay. And it was a little bathtub, you know? So here I am in the little bathtub. Oh and I'm trying to put water, but you can't cover the belly in a little bathtub.
No, right.
So it didn't really do anything. I was like, get me out of this bathtub. So
really?
I birthed on our bed. Yeah. I stacked up a bunch of pillows. Well, first I used the birthing ball, you know, like a exercise ball, and just kind of like, you know, bounced.
Yeah, right.
But the key to it, though, a lot of it, you have to be comfortable working with gravity. You know, the way they always birthed in the past was a birthing stool, so that you're working with gravity. You're just like in the squat position. So everything is lining up. You know, you're not laying on your back with your legs. You know, that's
not natural.
Not natural.
Which is one of your biggest points that you wanted to make, is that we were created to have babies.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that's my number one belief, is all women were created by God to birth babies naturally. I truly, honestly believe it. Now, there are some special circumstances, emergency circumstances, but you plan for that, and you can know ahead of time if certain things are like, ooh, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this, and you can plan ahead for some things like that, where you have to be in a hospital setting or whatever. But
and we've talked about that before on the show too, different things that you can do with the birth plan if you are having birth at a hospital. And Brianna can probably link to that one show, but
Now being at home, a birth plan is a little bit different. It's primarily like,
but you still need one. It's not just like, oh, I'm just hanging out at home and then you have a baby.
You need to communicate with your midwife. Or if you're doing, that's the other thing, you can do an unassisted birth too. You know, like after we've had how many kids, at some point, you kind of
know what you're doing
down, you know.
I guess.
But I felt, now for me, I felt more comfortable having somebody there. So I had a midwife, you know.
So you had a birth plan with the midwife.
And the birth plan was more to make sure that you and the people that are going to be there understand and know. It's kind of like what a doula does, right? You know, to be able to know what you want, what you don't want, as far as keeping you comfortable, as far as touching, not touching, you know, like, I mean, a lot of that, you're like, get away from me, you know, that kind of stuff. But to be able to know, you know, if you're going to want to eat or drink, what kinds of things you want, what you don't want.
And to hold you to it if you're not thinking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you're like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. Yes, you can. By the way, if you get to that point, I can't do this, you're in transition. It's almost there. You're right on the corner.
Really? And then you're like that close
every time, like clockwork, every time I get to the point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. My midwife's like, oh, you're at transition. It's only a little while longer.
I don't know if I could handle a midwife being like that excited. If I'm like,
well, no, she was very laid back, very laid back. But she just knew my personality.
I'm just sitting here thinking like, oh, that might be overwhelming.
No, she was very. The midwife that and that's the other thing. You have to interview who you want to be there. You have to make sure that their personalities are what you're looking for.
Right.
My midwife was very, very relaxed, very quiet. You know, wasn't like.
So it was like a calm experience. It wasn't like crazy.
You know, and now here's the thing. Birth plans, some people think, oh, I'm going to light candles and it's going to be all beautiful. Okay, honey, don't even.
That's not going to happen.
That's just not reality, you know.
It's not going to be like Instagram worthy, picture perfect.
And that's one of my things, you know, like in this birth plan, don't make such expectations of yourself with like timing and all that kind of, it is what it is. Just be in the moment and just like know and feel what your body is doing. And that's what the whole important thing about not using drugs. You like to be able to feel and know like that. As the baby is moving, like I knew each time when it was getting close to like there was this thunk. I can't even explain it. All of a sudden there's this thunk. And I'm like, hold the phone, what was that, you know? And it's like the baby dropping into the canal, getting ready to go. And it was with each of my babies. And I could talk for hours. We gotta consolidate this.
Well, but what you said too, though, about not being on pain meds so that you can feel those things that are naturally supposed to be happening.
And you can kind of feel like, okay, something's not right. Something, you know, and I'll talk about how each birth is so different. You know, one from the,
But so pain relief.
So
like you didn't. Okay. You had home birth and you didn't have drugs or anything. So, so Christy has this comb. My dad's a barber, so I'm used to seeing this. I'm like, are you just combing your hair before the show? But that's not what it is. What is it?
No, I had someone tell me one time. She's like, do you have combs? And I'm like, what do I need combs for? She's like, pain relief. I'm like, really? What? You would be amazed at how much, especially like early on as you're coming through contractions and just like kind of getting used to it. Not when they're like in full intensity, but there's different things you can do. So you take the tines of the comb and you put it inside and you squeeze as hard as you can. You concentrate on that more than you're concentrating on this. Now remember, progression of everything going the way it needs to, you have to be as relaxed as possible. The more you tense up, the worse it hurts, the longer it takes. You know, like so this whole it's distraction.
Right. Distraction to keep you relaxed.
It's a distraction. You know, anything that you can do to distract yourself.
That feels
like,
you
know what I mean? Yeah. You got it in both hands. That was early on. I didn't use that later on. Later on, as things progressed, then for me, I loved water. So like she was saying, the second house that we got, one of the it absolutely had to have a jacuzzi tub in the master suite.
Because you were planning on having home birth.
I was planning on having my babies in the water.
So you had this plan.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to birth my babies in the water. After that first one, so I was up on with Faith, our oldest, I was up on all fours on our bed with like 6 to 8 pillows, and I was like laying up on it, so I was upwards, but I was like kind of on all fours or whatever, and that's how I birthed my baby. So the first birth.
So that's how you did the first birth with Faith.
The first birth on her bed.
But then the others were in the tub?
to the next 2 were in the tub.
Okay.
And then my last one, every time I went to the tub, labor stopped.
So she just didn't like the idea of the tub.
And it was such a hard thing. And that's why I say every birth is so different. Like, I can tell you, like, mentally, like, that last one, I had some things, like, emotionally, I mean, because, you know, through marriage, through business stuff, through whatever, I mean, life was crazy. So this last baby had come after a whole lot of life. And I had some emotional pent up, like, whatever. And it wasn't until I just really, because I was like, what's going on? I want this birth to be faster. What? Well, come on.
You know, like I've done it 3 times before, and it's been perfect.
And I'm like, it was just kind of dragging on. And then like the stopping in the water, I'm like nothing. It would go down to like nothing. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What's going on? I get out of the tub and it start back up, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's not going to happen. I don't know, but then. So with that last one, I ate and just kind of rested a little, and I took some power naps because I was if your body's exhausted, it will slow down to bury anything. You got to make sure you have enough energy. That's the thing about being at home. You can eat, you can drink water, you can drink fluids. You don't have to like only have ice chips. You have to have enough energy to birth that baby. You know, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah. Right.
So I had power naps, and all I remember during these power naps was like having these. I mean, they were intense and like those contractions major. Like, and then I would it would go, you know, away or whatever, and it felt like they were happening like on top of each other. And Patrick's like. They were like a really long time apart.
What's a long time when you're in labor, though?
Well, at that point,
like
though,
minutes?
that was when they were when birth had kind of, you know, stopped, came to a halt every time I went into water. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm exhausted because I had been up since early in the morning. I'm like, okay, just need to go to sleep. And so they were like, I want to say they're 20 to 30 minutes apart. They were like far apart. And then all of a sudden they got closer and they got closer. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, is it just me or are they right on top of each other? And Patrick's like, oh, I think, you know, because he was like, okay, honey, I think we're getting closer. And I was going to try the tub again, but I like got up to like walk and it was like, okay. Thunk.
This is happening.
Like it happened. The thunk.
The thunk. The thunk.
So it's like, oh, I'm having this baby right now, you know?
That's like the medical term for you're ready to push. The thunk.
I guess if you want to call it.
You could call it that. That's awesome.
So I had that. I had the last baby right there on my floor. We just put down some shower curtains and I was like kneeling on one knee and leaning against Patrick and just like, you know, he was supporting me Patrick was like, that was awesome. Faith was there. My oldest daughter was there.
I was going to ask about that. Did you have the other kids there?
Faith got to see the last one. Okay. And she and Felicity, they have such a bond to this day.
So how old was Faith when Felicity was born?
10.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Wow, she was that's 10. Cool. So she was there for that one.
She was, yeah.
Wow. What a cool experience.
It was
for her.
It was awesome. I wanted her. I just knew that the younger ones, they could have been there, but for me, I needed to do what I was comfortable with too. Yes. And I'm like, I'm comfortable with her. We had somebody there, actually Timberland.
Oh, okay.
Timberland was there. So
was there too.
She was there with her.
Okay.
To take her out if I needed her to go. Right, if you needed to.
Yeah.
They stay.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, but now my second birth, I just want to flip to this. So, you know, I had these births that kind of, you know,
they're all
my expectation was to be a little fast. Well, here's why. Baby number 2 was 2 hours start to finish. I woke up at like, I don't know, 12:30, 1:45, something like that. I'm like, babe, the thunk. I had the, I'm like, I think I'm in labor. And he's like, oh, go back to sleep. It's just a Braxton. Go back to sleep.
Right.
And I'm like, no. You know, I'm like getting in the bathroom because, okay, so I know, what do they use for getting you ready for birth? Do they have you do enemas or some kind of thing to make you poop or something? I don't know. I remember someone talking about that.
So
let me tell you, when you're going to labor, you just naturally clean out. Like it just happens. It just happens. If you're in labor, it just happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the bathroom and I'm like, they're on one on top of each other.
The
I'm like, babe, can you please call the midwife? And so he's like,
so did she get there in time?
So he calls her and she's like, get her in the tub right now or she's going to have it before I get there.
Oh my.
And so she gets there and I think she got there at like, let's see, so I think she got there at about maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then I had the baby at 3. Like, it was just like, boom, boom, boom. Okay, we're in the bed and nursing and sleeping. And so, like, literally, we had the baby, and I was sleeping with, co-sleeping with baby, like, 2 hours later. Wow. It was, like, the fastest thing ever. I was like, awesome. This is awesome.
Well, which then obviously sets your expectation to be a little different for the next
which is why I say set your expectations reasonable. Every birth is different. The length of time, what it's going to look like, what how your body reacts. Each baby is different.
Right.
How you eat during the pregnancy has a direct effect on your birth.
On your labor, really.
Can I tell you that? Because with the first pregnancy, remember I was still not completely, I was on my health journey. I came a long way from where I was, but I was
before you got pregnant.
By no means like in a perfect state of whatever. So I gained a lot of weight with my pregnancy, and so recovery afterwards, it was a little longer than but that being said, it was still wonderful. Now, with the second pregnancy, I was so strict. I stayed away from known allergens that I knew I had. Really? I stuck to
and that was the one that was like 2 hours.
I know, I'm telling you. But even the whole process was so 180 different. Wow. And likewise, all the births after that, I stuck to doing it very, according to my food allergies and very, very strict. And they were just really great births. It was, like Patrick said, the last one was textbook. He's like, oh my goodness, she did the spin thing. She was so pink and whatever. And I'm like, cool.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. Well, and your last one was Felicity, right?
Yes, the last one was Felicity.
And how old is she?
She is 5.
She's 5. Okay. I couldn't remember what the ages were of the girls. I know Faith is 16,
15.
Right? 15, almost
15.
16.
Almost. Okay. She's starting to drive.
Oh, that's scary, isn't it? Going from talking about birth to realizing that she's old enough to drive.
Oh, I know.
Yikes.
I know. You know what the cool thing is, though? So Faith watched the birth of her sister. And, we talk about, we're very open in our family. Right. They know about breastfeeding. They know what, like I had to correct my daughters, they went to kindergarten, they're just, to them, oh yeah, buoy, they're talking about milkies, and I'm like, oh, I'll make sure that she knows not to, just
not
be
to say
open
that.
and vocal. That we are at home.
Right.
But we have conversations about having babies and like all these different healthy things, like I know you guys have talked about when Bree's here with Bella and talking about how do you talk those conversations. We talk about it all the time. When you have babies, Mama had you guys at home. Do you remember when they would go to Grandma's house and then they come back and there's a baby there, and so having those conversations, setting them up and telling them, because I've had them say, well, Mom, doesn't it hurt? Everybody says, oh, you gotta, go and get, like I had Callista. Callista hates needles.
Yeah.
And so she's like, Mom, and they were telling me that I have to get cut open to have a baby.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, honey, no. You don't have to do that. If it's an emergency, sometimes there has to be, but no. We'll teach you how to, you deal with the pain naturally. That's what Mama did.
Right,
Mama
that's what
did
the comb's
and
for.
I showed her. I'm like, yeah. And so, I want to bring something up. There's a couple books. There's a really good book. It's called Childbirth Without Fear by Grantley Dickreed. And that book in there, now I'm a Christian, God-fearing woman. Genesis 3:16, it says, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will give birth to children. This is where the whole pain in childbirth comes, right? You hear that verse all the time. Well, I did a study after reading this book because they bring it out and talk about it. People always say, oh, it's so painful. I need an epidural. Oh, this kind of, and I'm like, you know what? I want to look at this word. So I looked at the word in Hebrew. Like I brought out the concordance and different books and stuff and looked it up. Do you know that word does not mean like pain?
What does it mean?
It means hard labor.
Oh.
So if you replace that, like it actually means hard work. What is birthing a baby?
It's hard work.
It's hard work. So
Doesn't
just like
mean it has to be
you know,
painful.
men and women. So men were, you know, the toil of the land, you know, and then we have the hard work of labor, raising these kids and, you know, birthing the babies.
Right.
So sometimes I think it's, if you change your perspective and look at it as it's pain with a purpose, because it's painful, but when I knew that if I just allow myself to relax, I mean, I've used a lot of imagery. We had just been, you know, we had been to Hawaii for our honeymoon and like been back and, you know, after Faith was like 2,
so
you know,
it's just your mindset of
I looked at
having your
the
mindset.
waves.
Right.
I had to create like this imagery in my head, like, because you had that intense pain and then it subsides, and I'm like, okay, it's just like a wave.
Like a wave, yeah.
So using some of this imagery, being able to like breathe through and picture and just put yourself somewhere else, to be able to get through. But so when it comes to that kind of thing, Active Birth, it's a book by Janet Velasquez.
That's the name. Active
Birth. She goes through, and this is a huge important thing, being active in your birth, in your laboring. Staying upright is going to be more intense, but you're working.
Meaning, like, don't just lay there?
No. Don't just lay there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you absolutely have no energy and you need to rest, stay on your, I think it's your left side is the best. But get on one of those bouncy balls, you know, do stairs, do counter pressure, have your spouse or someone on both sides of your hips press in, like it's a counter pressure. Oh, it feels amazing. You know, like when, especially if you're having like back labor or something like that. There's so many different things that you can do to counteract, but a lot of it is perception.
Yeah.
Like if you tell yourself this is horrible, I can't do this, guess what? You can't. But if you tell yourself, you go into it and say, hey, I get empowered when I hear about people, you know, because I know how empowering it was for me.
Just to do it,
To just do it and say, you know what, I trust God. I'm doing this.
You know, that's what you were created to do. You did it without any drugs. You did it at home.
Yeah, at home. 4 times. 4
I was going to ask you.
And it's not as messy. Everyone's like, oh, isn't it messy?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in the tub, no, not at all. You know, I mean, but we put down like, the shower curtain.
shower curtains,
Yeah, it wasn't messy. You just roll it up, throw it away. You know, there isn't.
Oh, that works.
I didn't think so anyway.
And it's kind of fun to hear from somebody who's been there and done it, and to be able to ask you those questions. You know, for some of the people that are watching thinking, oh, I definitely could not do a home birth. Hopefully having this conversation is a good realization that it might not be as difficult as you think it is.
Scary.
Or as scary.
I think some people kind of have that fear.
Oh, in the
back of their heads, like, what if?
What if? Well, and what is
what
is the what if though? I mean,
the what if? Okay, so
is you go to the hospital?
If baby's not well, here's the other thing: if you're preparing properly, you know, my husband, I was going to say Patrick, my husband, Dr. Patrick, preparing your body, preparing for birth, preparing for pregnancy, making sure you're getting it. I can't imagine if you're pregnant and not getting adjusted.
Not getting adjusted, yeah.
You must get adjusted. And there's a technique called the Webster's technique. And if baby is transverse, it happens every time. It's basically the ligaments on either side of your
what? I don't know what you're saying, otherwise I fill in the blank. Your uterus, on either side of your uterus. If one is tighter than the other, well, what happens to, like, if this baby
was a
shifts?
Baby shifts and can't shift back. So Webster's technique helps to loosen those up and make sure that they bounce back out, and then the baby can descend like they're supposed to.
Right.
So it's been known to help babies to get into the correct position for birth. And so having that done, making sure you're getting it adjusted, making sure you're eating.
Being prepared, planning.
Absolutely. You know, doing all those things can help to alleviate any fears or and another huge thing, make sure you voice your fear. Like if you're like, I don't want to tear, guess what? Don't hold that in. So communicate. Say, I don't want to tear. That is like, you know, each birth, I had one thing that was like, not a fear, but just a worry or a concern.
Yeah, right.
And I made sure my midwife, my husband, I
voiced
made sure they all knew that this was what my concern was. And guess what? It never happened.
It never happened.
Each time, every time you voice it, you give it no power because you're able to counteract and say, okay, what can we do to alleviate? What can we do to not have it happen? So it doesn't even become.
Yeah, I think one of the other points too with home versus hospital and planning it at home is to not have those expectations, like you said, and it's not on your time. Like you didn't get to decide. So this is something I've mentioned before too. Is like I chose my kids' birth dates because I had 4 C-sections. Right. So it was, I mean, the first one was just, well, it's Friday, so let's do a C-section today. And then Layla's was an emergency C-section, and then the other 2 was, well, why don't we just pick a date, you know, just pick when you want to do it. Well, when you're doing it at home, and even if it were a hospital, but more natural birth, you don't get to pick that. So for you, it was just whenever it starts happening. Well, and honestly, the biggest
thing I always say is baby is ready when baby is ready.
Yeah.
So you can go into labor. Decision. Like I went into false labor with Faith a couple weeks before. I thought, okay, you know, regular contractions, and then it didn't go anywhere. I was like, what's that? But then with Trinity, I went into that same kind of pre-labor thing. I ended up 6 centimeters dilated for 2 weeks. I was doing that hard work of labor beforehand. So her birth was literally 2 hours. It was like,
which is why it was so quick.
You know? Yeah, exactly. But baby will come when baby is ready.
And that's how it was created to happen.
Exactly. So, which goes along the lines of don't feel that pressure to like push it along. If your water hasn't broke, or if it's just broken to the point where it hasn't created that break in the seal that would cause infection or anything like that, you know, sometimes it can re-plug up and it's fine. Don't push things along too fast. Wait, baby will come when baby's ready.
Yeah. So were you, what is it, 40 weeks? Were you
with like each one?
38 weeks, 42 weeks? I mean, it's different for every.
I think 41 weeks with Faith. I think I was a little over with Faith. But again, you know what? I just say this whole due date thing. That's another thing with home birth or whatever. So my midwife, she could tell where the baby was. She could kind of tell the size. You know, we'd always measure whatever. So as far as figuring out when you got pregnant and like how big baby is, what week you're on,
how far you are,
it's a guess.
Just guess.
It's a guess. It's like, unless you know, okay, we had sex only on that day. That's the only way that you know.
I mean, it's pretty easy to know in that case.
But, well, for us.
But even so, though, I mean, 40 weeks, 38, 42.
Not saying we're like rabbits, but, you know.
But
my husband would
basically.
No. So anyway, oh my goodness. Well.
Are we blushing now? Because now we know. Just kidding. But really, it's on baby's time.
It is a baby. It's a best guess. And honestly, you know, who's to say that your baby isn't developing faster or slower than what a certain standard
it's supposed to be? Right.
You know, you don't really. You know, they always say, what, after 37 weeks or so, you know, any time now.
Right.
Because you don't know.
And then if you're having a home birth, I would imagine you just need to be ready.
You just,
all the time.
At that point, we're like ready.
Yeah.
And it's usually lots of Braxtons, you know, at that point. It's lots of Braxtons and.
Wow, that's crazy. And I'm kind of just like staring at you listening because I had 4 C-sections. I'm like, that seems so cool. Like, it seems like an awesome experience to be able to do that.
It was.
I mean, I'm sure it's not the case for everybody, and some people won't be able to or don't want to. I guess I can see.
I have a lot of friends who are like, all the more power to you. I want the drugs. And I'm like, oh.
Or maybe, or even the happy meeting, or the happy medium between the two where you're at a hospital, but you don't do the drugs, and you don't, do some
again, that goes to where you feel most comfortable, where you're going to be the most relaxed. You absolutely have to. If you're not relaxed, it will stall labor. I mean, literally.
And you don't want that.
You don't want that.
You don't want to
You want everything to progress along, so you want to.
That's so good.
Stay as
well. So I'd like to get your story some other time. So hopefully we'll have you back on another time so that we can talk more of your story before the babies.
Yeah.
And a little bit more about the endometriosis and you know what your days were like when that was what you were living through.
Because pleasant, that's
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So I mean, someday we'll do that.
Okay.
I'd like to do that sometime. But thank you for being on, and thanks for sharing your story and for talking home birth. And if people have questions, I mean, they can reach out to you.
Absolutely, and I think I'm going to come back after and post. I have a bunch of books, books names and titles of things that help me, especially with the first from the first birth to like each different part of it. So.
And that's something we talk about on this show a lot is researching and doing your research. So you know, getting out there and learning what those things are that are available. So Christy will post some of that stuff.
I will.
I wanted to mention too, a little bit earlier you said, well, I wrote that in the book. What were you talking about? I'm like, wait, you wrote a book? And it didn't dawn, like for a minute it didn't dawn on me. I'm like, wait a second.
I helped. Yes. I added my input.
That's so cool.
Yeah, with this book. So I Disagree book.
That's coming out in May.
And we have a huge kickoff event, May 17th.
Yes.
I hope that all of you will come, be there with us if you can. If you're not, I know they have.
Yeah, we have online. Yep, you can watch it online. Or a lot of our other clinics are hosting parties too.
Yes,
so that they can
get involved in that. If you're near another office, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but go to the website. It's thewellnesswayclinics.com/I disagree. That book is coming out May 17th, and we're all going to be there, and it's going to be a blast. And Bree's actually going to be doing some of the emceeing too. So hopefully we will see you there. And thanks for watching today. See you next week.